Hello, Zalto Live listeners. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that more teachings from Zen monk Claude AnShin Thomas are available in his two books, At Hell's Gate, A Soldier's Journey from War to Peace, and Bringing Meditation to Life, 108 Teachings on the Path of Zen Practice. Both are available wherever books are sold, and all proceeds go to the Zalto Foundation, dedicated to promoting nonviolence, awareness, and positive change.
Hello and welcome to Zalto Live, the podcast featuring Zen Buddhist monk Claude AnShin Thomas, who will share with you his life experiences that includes not only military combat, personal violence, and addiction, but also healing, transformation, and the ongoing joy of everyday life. Please enjoy listening.
Questions? Mukon.
Anshin, my question is, are you creating a new lineage?
No. What prompts you to ask?
I ask because I remember many years ago you say something like we are creating a new lineage. So my question was, is something in maybe your project plan or little by little is changing the lineage?
Well, I don't remember saying that, but no, it's not necessary to create something new. We are who we are. We do what we do. We are Zalto. Question? Yes, Myozen and then Kenko.
On your pilgrimage from Auschwitz to Vietnam, did you meet any teachers who were precious for you, whose teaching you were reflecting on again and again?
Yes. Billy. No, it's true. Yeah, Billy was on that pilgrimage. Yeah, Billy's not a teacher in a formal sense in that you would refer to it, but yes, we experienced a lot together. Yes, Kenko, but in terms of in Buddhist lineages and things, not so much. Yes, there were just a second, Kenko. There were a few. It's not so much the person as it was the experiences, and what different experiences brought me in contact with. Yeah, like that. Kenko.
I was wondering, how do you maintain your curiosity about everything?
I guess I'm just naturally curious. I don't know. I'm just naturally curious. But I don't even, it's just, I don't need, I'm okay with living in a world where the boundaries are more fluid. So that supports us, what you might refer to as curiosity. If somebody tells me a thing is so, I can understand that, and I'm willing to try that on, and I'm willing to look at what they're talking about from different angles of perception. I guess if I had to say one thing, if I had to come back to a certain thing, it would be my sort of waking up to how I was conditioned to some of the choices that led me to go into the military and go into war. That there isn't a fixed way of looking at things. and so that keeps me curious. But generally, some things it doesn't matter. I'm not curious about them. I just don't care. Yeah. Question. Yes, Natalie and then Nicola. Natalia and then Nicola. I like that. I don't get angry with me. I just like it. It sounds nice. Go ahead, Natalie.
I would agree. What would you, if we're talking about good communities, from your perspective, what would be a good community?
Well, you're connected to one.
Yes.
I find the Zalto community, all in all, to be quite balanced and quite healthy. And it doesn't mean that we don't bump up against each other, but there is a good, strong foundation and a solid, stable practice which people can utilize when they find themselves in difficult situations, either amongst each other or outside. But there has to be this willingness, Kenko, this curiosity to not hold on to a fixed idea about what's happening in front of me, or what a particular interaction might mean, or what is the root or source of it. So, and I would also say that, in response to your question, that a community that is not sort of glued dogmatically together. Yeah. Nicola.
My question is, what is self-esteem?
What is self-esteem? Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's that you feel okay about yourself. And you feel okay about yourself. You understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you don't listen too much to the stories that your mind tells you. Question. Kenshin.
Do you think with increased awareness it's possible to notice the moving and turning of planet Earth?
I don't know that it really matters.
I'm just curious.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess if I get up too quick and I start and I have a bit of destabilization, if I'm a little spinning like, I guess I'm noticing the Earth.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. No, this is one of those things, Kenko, where it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, I'm not so curious about it. Can I do this or can I do this? Doesn't really matter to me. Yeah. Milko, you had a question.
AnShin, are there qualities for your conditioning that serve your practice today?
Absolutely, yes. That I can. But let's see how I've been able to moderate my tendency towards obsession. I have a tendency to be obsessive and compulsive. But I've learned how to live with that in a more healthy way, how to apply that in healthier ways. For example, when I was in Europe, the Thursday evening sittings and the Sunday evening veterans gathering, I didn't miss a one, and they were at 1 o'clock in the morning for me in Europe. But I had this loyalty, not to a fault anymore, but I had this loyalty to commitment. How important that is, and how that adds to the stability of a community. That words and actions match. And so I think those can fall underneath the quality of obsession and compulsion, but in a healthy manifestation of it. So ask your question again, just one more time. Help me here.
Are there qualities of your conditioning that serve your practice today?
Yes.
Or what are those?
Yeah. So there's an aspect of my conditioning, and I attach it to my war experience, where there are times when I just really hate myself. I have this tendency to, in my own mind, never be good enough. I have this tendency to expect that at any moment now that any one of you are going to find out who I really am because of how I feel about myself, and that you're going to hate on me. You're going to leave and never come back. And that aspect of myself, which grows out of my conditioning, really helps me to keep right size. Because I know that for the most part it's not true, but it also it helps keep me balanced. Because people say a lot of people sort of say some really, they want to build me up into something larger than what would be good for me to think of myself as. And so I have to remember. I have to remember where I came. I have to remember, like, or there's these voices. They just help me to keep right size. Some people say really positive things about me, and I actually can't feel them. They say, "Wow, you're really good," and I go, "Thank you." That's the best I can do, because I don't necessarily feel that. I respect that other people, when people say positive things, for the most part they mean that, and I value that. I hear that, I listen to that, I take that in, and I really thank them for that. But I also know that sometimes people will go after, they'll attempt to appeal to what they think is my vanity. And fortunately, I don't have that. And that's where that other voice, that other side of me, that wants to eat away at my self-esteem. It wants to steal it away. That's where that side helps to keep me in balance. I had an interesting podcast the other day with a person who, she had a very divergent view of the world than me, and she was and the interviewer was rather shocked because I didn't necessarily agree with her position. I didn't argue with her. I wasn't about to convince her, And she just asked me. She said, "Well, what's your opinion about faith?" And I said, "Faith is a waste of time." I mean, I really experience it like that. Because what I experience in the world, when people talk about faith, or they sort of wrap themselves up in this idea of faith, that it's just that. It's just an idea. It's talk. And I said, what really makes more sense to me is that first I understand that was like that. What my life was like, what I did, what I experienced. Then the next is acceptance. From understanding to move into acceptance. That this, how I am today, is like this because that was like that. So to establish that interconnection. And then I move from acceptance to action. As this is, that will become. So as I learn to live in a more conscious relationship with how I have been affected by the karma I have inherited, then I can recognize and stop doing things that are not supportive to me or to the world or people to the world. And so the interviewer wanted to rather still convince me, but I just simply said, okay. If that works for you, then okay. Yeah. But see, this is something that I normally do, and I have to be more conscious of this when I do these interviews. When I'm in public and I take questions, I always set up a framework for the questions. What I will say is that you ask a question, short to the point, I respond to it. I assure people that I don't have any answers, that I'll share with them from a place of my experience and from and as I have been informed through my study. What I also say to them is that if you disagree with me, I don't want to argue about that. I don't want to discuss about that. It takes too much away from the group. And I said I will tell you in advance, whatever your position is, you're already correct. However, if you have to attempt to convince me of the rightness of your position and the wrongness of my position, then what you're telling me is you're not very solid in your position. Because if you were solid in your position, you wouldn't have to argue with me. Because what's happened when I've given my responses is it's challenged something about your worldview. It's not my intention. Generally it's not my intention. Sometimes it is. But generally it's not my intention to do that. And that's what, the last two podcasts I have, people have bumped up against my positions a bit. So, one person, I explained that I'm fully vaccinated and I've received the booster, and some person was attempting to convince me that having vaccines, being vaccinated and the way the healthcare system works, like waging war. And I said, I don't experience that way. What I experience is that a vaccine isn't about isn't about killing the virus. It doesn't keep me from contracting the virus. What it does, it gives me the ability to live in a different relationship with it, which is exactly what I'm attempting to do with my suffering. To not reject it, nor to allow it to make my decisions for me. To live in a conscious relationship with it, to be at peace with my unpeacefulness. And so that's what I view the process in that way. People believe differently. I'm not here to convince them. This is just how I experience the world. And that experience of the world grows out of my spiritual practice, which grows out of the fact that for a considerable length of time now, I have been free of intoxicants. Yeah, no alcohol, no illegal drugs, and for the most part, no prescribed medication. Well, actually, no prescribed medications. I take vitamin B12 and vitamin D3, but I don't look at them necessarily as drugs. Some people might, but I don't. Question. Yes, Getzigan. And then Natalia.
In my life, there was a kind of tension between taking care of myself and working with the demands of others. I guess you know this. And if yes, would you talk about the process you have around this topic?
Yeah, in truth, Getzigan, I don't think about this topic too much. Because if I think about something too much, I'm spending too much time in my head. And I'm getting too analytical about it. How to care for myself is just clear. If I'm not thinking about it, not analyzing it, and not attempting to figure it out, then what to do next becomes more clear. how to take care of myself becomes more clear. For example, people might say to me that staying up to facilitate a sitting meditation or a question and response period, and to staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning was not really taking care of myself, because I'd be up from 1 till 2 and then cleaning up and getting everything. I mean, I might not make it to bed till 3:30 or 4. But it's about my commitment to practice. It's about my commitment to the group of people whom I'm connected to, who I have a responsibility to. And the truth is that, you know, if I go to bed at 4, I can sleep till 10, you know. Or I can find that I can take a nap during the day, you know, or I can, in the middle of sitting, you know, my posture is so steady and stable that I can sleep while I'm sitting. You don't even know it. No, I'm making that up. It's not true. You can ask Enroy. If I fall asleep and sitting, you know it. Yeah, I'm doing this thing. So, but yeah, I don't think about it too much. I just don't, because really it's very clear, totally clear. It only becomes unclear when I start to think too much about it. Natalie.
I was wondering of your opinion for can I learn if I encounter an obstacle, can I learn to concentrate on the solving of it rather than the other way?
Well, the issue is obstacle. You know, I would say in my life, there really aren't any obstacles. I create obstacles in my mind. Mm-hmm. For example, when I was in Germany, I was there. I arrived just before the evacuation of Afghanistan, and so a large number of Afghan refugees and U.S. troops were brought to Germany, to Ramstein Air Force Base. So I went together with Genrai down to Ramstein. I wanted to go there to see what I could do to be of support to that process. And I knew that I knew going down there that I have very little control over this circumstance. You know, and all I can do is make myself available. I can let people know who I am, what I have to offer, and then the process is going to unfold. As it turned out, I never did get access to them. I did, however, in the process of attempting to build some really interesting connections, and so what could have been perceived as obstacles weren't really obstacles, they were opportunities. And I knew that going in. And finally, what someone had the courage to say to me was, look, if you don't have blankets, chocolate, vaccines, or food, we're not interested. We just want to get these people in here and hold them until we can get them out of here. That's it. We just want to be a stopover point. And in fact, it's a pity because they missed a real opportunity that's gonna surface later on wherever these people end up. And it doesn't matter whether they're Afghan refugees or U.S. soldiers. The resources available to U.S. soldiers returning, I would say the resources available to soldiers from whatever country who return from combat, the resources available to them are based in ideas and theories and not in fact of experience. So obstacles, I think, is to evaluate that. And is it an for me? They're opportunities. It frustrates people sometimes because I don't react like people would like me to react, because it's supposed to be an obstacle and I'm supposed to react a certain way because it's an obstacle and I don't. Yeah. But it's just the way it is for me these days. Question? Thank you. Yes, Mukon.
You have time.
Okay.
40 minutes.
How much?
40. 40?
20?
40.
4, okay. Go ahead, Mukon.
I think how you can realize for you or for the rest when the practice is quick.
When the practice is quick?
Weak.
A week.
Weak practice.
Well, I don't know if there is such a thing. People, what I might, I mean, I of course I have my notions about what is important regarding practice. And I do my best to not impose that on others. Because the real truth is that the practice is a real individual process. And so what I do is I lay out the foundations of a disciplined practice as it was passed to me. And then people will do with that what they do with that. Now, if someone wants to be directly connected to me, then what they're doing is they're saying, I'm looking for your input. And I will. That's what when I was in Germany, I did that on a number of occasions with Genrai. And the input is really about form and application, and it's about rather not supporting people to just do whatever they want, but to be keep things very simple and be disciplined and loyal and committed to the form of things, and then see what grows out of that discipline to the form of things. So weak practice, I don't know. I'm cautious about that. Yeah. Question? Yes, Natalie.
What is the current COVID situation in the States?
Oh, it's still here, you know, and I would say it's still here. The vast majority of people are making an effort to pretend that it's not here. I received a message from someone today who has a family member or has a friend who's working in a hospital in intensive care, or in a hospital, and they're working around the intensive care, and the intensive care is full. But it's full, and there are people waiting outside, and they are people with COVID, and the people who are there in that hospital with COVID in that serious condition are unvaccinated. Now, I don't have a position. I don't have a global position around vaccinations. I'm not against. I make an effort not to take a political position around this topic. And I'm vaccinated, and I live that out loud. And what I see unfolding, and this is, it doesn't matter. It's too easy to be anti. There's a lot of anti stuff out there. It's too easy to be anti. I'd rather know what people are for. So rather than going on rants about being anti-vaccination or COVID denying, then what is happening? Yeah, and the information the information that I receive generally has been substantiated from people I know personally who are working in these fields. So people ask me if I was upset about people not being vaccinated, and I go, look, it's not an issue for me. I'm going to discover what the long-term effects are of these vaccinations, if there are any, because I'm vaccinated. But really, when I went into the military, when I was in basic training, man, they took 250 of us in a basic training unit down to a medical aid station. We were in a line, a big line, two lines. We walked down two lines. There were like 3 or 4 medics on either side of us, and we had to be in t-shirts, and we must have received 8 or 9 vaccinations like in one day, and I have no idea what they were. None. And my life's quite, I'm okay. I have aches and pains, but listen, I was not nice to myself when I was younger. And so as I get older, my body is responding to some of these injuries that I've had. And so, yeah, if you don't want to get vaccinated, what I would really prefer is if you don't want to get vaccinated, or if you want to deny COVID, that's okay with me. But if you get really sick, then don't go to the hospital. Yeah? Don't eat up the resources. What I hear from people who work in the hospitals up in Boston is that a number of people with COVID being moved into intensive care then want to be vaccinated. It's too late. It's too late at that point. But I make an effort. I make my best effort to say, look, this is what I do for myself. What your choice is your choice, but also to be aware that your choice is not just your choice. The choice that you make also has a cultural, social impact on the interconnected whole. As I am, the world becomes. I know that. I don't just believe that in my head. I know that in some really profound way. So, long answer, long response to short question. Question. Kenshin and then Billy.
About feelings. So feelings come and go. So do you let practice or something else guide you how much or when you share about feelings, like communicate about having feeling?
Feelings can come and go. They don't. It depends on our relationship to them. If I identify myself by the feelings that I have, I can also grasp onto them, and they become an identity for me. And then I don't allow them any sort of natural existence. My relationship, when do I share? Well, it depends. Generally, let's say out loud, in public, I have 2 or 3 people close to me that I'm willing to be more vulnerable to. But and in public, I'm willing to. I'm more vulnerable than most in public. People think I'm really vulnerable in public, but there's aspects of my life, aspects of how I feel, how I think, that I just don't share in public, because they're quite private. If I'm asked about certain things on the spot, I always decide how to respond. But really, it's important. Like, for example, Myozen, Nicola, Kenko, Mukon, Billy, Myoko, Getsugan, Kelby, Gabby even. Oh, Gabby, can I tell the story about the treatment you gave me at the Frauenhof? Can you hear me, Gabby? Oh, I don't know if she can hear me. Well, she can't. Oh, okay. I was going to say, if she can't hear me, then I can really tell this story. So I had some challenges for some time with with
She's lifting her thumb.
What's that? Okay, the IT band in my leg, and it was causing me it was really painful, and so Gabi's a physiotherapist, so I asked Gabi if there's something she could do to help me, and she had this new treatment. She had this new process that she had studied and she was learning something about moving energy, and so Gabi walked into my room, and somebody else was there. Miozen was there. Yes. And Gabi walked into the room and said, "Okay, take off your clothes." I went, "No, man, I don't have any underwear on." And Gabi said, "Oh, it's okay, doesn't matter." I said, "Yes, it matters. It matters." So I think Miozen went off and came back with a pair of underwear for me. I think it was a pair of Kenshin's underwear. So I put on a pair of Kenshin's underwear so that Gabi could work on my legs, right? But I just, then I don't mind sharing these kinds of things. When she asked me, I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't angry. I wasn't confused. It was just clear. No, I'm not going to take my clothes. I'm not going to get naked in front of Miozen and Gabi because I'm just not comfortable with that. And there is another solution. I'm not uncomfortable that I wore Kenshin's underwear. I'm not at all comfortable. I mean, it's like a Speedo bathing suit in some ways. But so there are some things I will share publicly, but there are also things that I just won't. But go ahead, Billy. You had a question.
You and I have had a lot of experiences together. Man, they gotta be some of the best things that ever happened with me. To be connected with you, going through, God knows. Boy, if I could tell these people stories, but anyways, I was wondering.
Shh! Don't you dare! No.
I just thought about when we were in Bosnia and you walked into the minefield when you were doing walking meditation. I don't know, never ever. I couldn't. Well, maybe you could tell me now because I never asked you. Did you know that you were walking into a minefield?
Not initially. But I understood that pretty quick. And so, it wasn't a new experience for me. It happened to me during, I experienced that during war, but I experienced it differently. And also there's a piece of me that continued for a point and then turned around and came back because the people who live in those areas don't have a choice about that. Yes.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Have you become any more adept at plastic chair throwing?
Not for some years. I think the last time I threw something, it was smaller than a chair, and it was decades ago. I can't remember what was going on. I was wrapping Christmas presents, and Kenshin came in and was, I don't know, she was just asking me as like a simple question, but at the time it didn't feel simple, and Kenshin can be demanding sometimes, and this might have been one of those times, and I threw a pair of scissors. Not at her. I just threw them into the rug. But it's been decades now since I've done something like that. Now, for the larger group, I'll share the story that Billy's referring to. Nha Trang, right? It was in Nha Trang, right? The chair throwing happened in Nha Trang. Yeah. So in the first pilgrimage from Poland to Vietnam, Billy was part of that pilgrimage. Now, we were traveling through Vietnam. Billy's also a combat veteran from Vietnam, and he was off with someone else that was in the pilgrimage. We had arrived in a seaside town named Nha Trang, and we went to a tea shop, and they had I want to say they had a boardwalk out to a concrete pad where they had tables and chairs, and the person who was serving came out and took our orders. We ordered tea, and they went back and they came out with the tea, and I asked if they had any honey. Now the person spoke really good English, but at the point of my asking if they had any honey, suddenly they didn't speak English. Now, what happened is that I was in an assault helicopter company, and so we worked with a variety of different troops who were or nations who were fighting in Vietnam, and we worked a lot with U.S. forces fighting together with South Vietnamese forces. All of the senior enlisted personnel and officers in the South Vietnamese army were trained here in the United States. So they had to speak English. And they all spoke English pretty well. And there were a couple of occasions where we were involved in the U.S. infantry were involved in a very tense and serious combat. They were fighting a lot of, taking a lot of casualties, and the South Vietnamese, they needed the South Vietnamese forces to execute a certain kind of action that would put them in harm's way, but it would also alleviate the pressure on the American soldiers. And when we went to get them to load up into the helicopter, suddenly they didn't speak English. They just pretended they didn't speak English. And every small period of time that they delayed being deployed out, it meant the U.S. forces were more at risk. More people were getting wounded or killed. And the incident with the person waiting on the table who suddenly didn't speak English regarding the honey brought me directly in contact with the feelings that accompanied the South Vietnamese forces, the people in control of the South Vietnamese forces not speaking English when there was a crisis. Brought me right in contact with this, and I had this rush, this intense rush of feelings. Like I wanted to, well, if I would have done what I wanted to do, I would have hurt the person. But instead I got up and, the plastic chairs like you have in the garden? Yeah, you sit outside in them, like the chairs Genra has on her balcony. Yes. So I got up, I picked up one of those chairs, and I just threw it out into the beach. Now there were some fishing boats. There were some fishing boats. They were parked on the beach. And just as I let the chair go, and just as it landed, Billy was walking around the corner of one of these boats with another person from this pilgrimage. And he looked up at me, because the people around me, they didn't know what to think about what just happened. They were very they were frightened and confused and They had all kinds of reactions, and Billy looked up to me and he said, in the spirit of the Olympics, he didn't say this, but in the spirit of the Olympics and like an Olympic gymnast or so, Billy looked up and he said, I give that about a 9.5. Yeah, and I just, all I could do was smile. It was a perfect response. So when you asked me, Myozen, about teachers on the pilgrimage, that would have been one of the examples that I was referring to. It was just a perfect response. And Billy said, Billy understood without even being there. He understood at some level what was happening. I can tell you though that the other people there, man, they didn't know what to do with that. Yeah. Question. Maybe if we keep telling the story, we'll get up to like 9.6 or 9.7. It was a nice release. Yeah. Question. Yes, Kyodo. No, you have to help me. I don't know.
The experience you had living on the street supported you with pilgrimage?
The experience of having lived on the street, if that supported pilgrimage.
Yes, yes, it does. It not only in pilgrimage, but it supports me when I actually go out on the street and do retreats out on the street, living out there. So yes, I don't ever want to forget those 2 years. I don't ever want to forget where my conditioning and how I was affected by that, where it led me. So yes, they are very. Look, when we go out on the street, I will never take more than 8 or 10 people out with me, and we usually have a weekend retreat that's open to the public, and then at the conclusion on the Sunday of that weekend retreat, then the group who's going out on the street, they come out with me. We leave, we go out onto the street, and so then I tell the group, says, "Well, find us a place to sleep." And really, when I look at the places they find, I go, yeah, they've never been out here before. It takes me usually about. So while they're looking, I already know. I mean, I've already been, as we've walked out to wherever we're going, I already know. I've already seen 2 or 3 places that are safe, because it's my responsibility when out there to care for the group. The first night on the street, I don't sleep. Not at all. And that's not only related to my experiences living on the street, but also to my combat experience. Because I have a responsibility to the group. And most of the people who come out with me are quite naive about the realities that they are facing. And they grow into that over time while we're out there, but in the beginning they're quite naive. Yeah. I'm going to share one more pilgrimage story, and then I think bring this to a close.
Perhaps one more question.
Okay. So we were walking on this pilgrimage. We were in Czech Republic. It was still Czechoslovakia at the time, and it was snowing. And I can't remember where we were at, but we were someplace, and a film crew came out. A television film crew came out, and they were filming us. And Billy made a snowball, and he threw this snowball, and this snowball went a perfect arc, and landed on the lens, hit the lens of the camera. So boom! I mean, it couldn't have been. He couldn't have done that if he tried. Really. It was so, and the camera guy, he got so angry, but I couldn't help it. I go up, put my arm around him, It just said, that was just the best toss I'd ever seen in my life. Yeah. Right, snowball, right into the lens of the camera. Yeah. That was a 10. Yes, I would have given that a 10. Last question. No, Billy and I have done protests at the Vatican. We've been together into when they were still fighting in the Balkans. We were together in Mostar. We've walked from Poland to Vietnam together. We've done quite some things together.
Thank you for listening to this episode on Zalto Live. If you would like additional information, please look at the show notes or visit zalto.org. That's ZALTHO.org. Our work is made possible solely through donations, so please consider making a tax-deductible gift on our website. We wish you well and thank you.